UFC 300 will be a disaster. We know that UFC 300 is expected to be the super card of super cards, with Dana White talking about some very special fights for the event. But in actuality, looking at the timeline of UFC 300, which takes place April 13th, I think it's going to be an utter disappointment. Now, I have reasons to back this up. I'm not just throwing some bullshit narratives out there. I've been working on my UFC 300 dream card, trying to be realistic about it and not have these fantasy matchups that can happen. And I'm coming into a lot of logistic issues with championship fights that don't seem likely to take place on April 13th. So we're going to talk about why I think UFC 300 will be a disaster. I hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure you smash the likes. And if you're new, subscribe. First things first is limited championship fight options. UFC 297 takes place in January. Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, and also Mayra Bueno Silva versus Raquel Pennington. A lot less interested in the co-main event. Sean Strickland would be a great fighter to have on UFC 300, but it's a pipe dream that he comes out of this Dricus du Plessis fight with minimal damage and is able to turn around and fight as soon as April 13th. He's going to have to take what? Couple weeks off and then jump right back into camp. Could it happen? Maybe, but the likelihood definitely seems on the lower side. And if Dricus du Plessis is to win, I'm assuming he's flying back to South Africa, having a parade, and I doubt he's going to want to turn around for UFC 300. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'll pray that I am, because I want UFC 300 to be a banger, but it's just looking like it's going to be underwhelming. Now, if we look at UFC 298, Volkanovski versus Topuria. Volk is a star in the UFC. That matchup would have been sick for 300, but Volkanovski wanted a very fast turnaround after his knockout loss to Islam Makhachev. That could be the biggest mistake of his career, because his recovery might not be there, and getting knocked out as badly as he did in the first round with a head kick against Makhachev could lead him to some chin issues and getting knocked out by Topuria. And Topuria ain't turning around from February to fight in April. And it seems like an immediate rematch would have to take place if Topuria wins. So those two are off. So the featherweight title ain't happening at UFC 300 without a doubt. If we're lucky, we're living in a pipe dream and the fantasy comes to reality, maybe the middleweight belt's on the line, but that's a strong maybe. Let's keep going down. O'Malley versus Vera, UFC 299. It takes place the month before UFC 300. And it is an absolutely stacked main card. I'm going to bring it up on screen so you can see. At UFC 299, we got O'Malley versus Vera, Burns versus JDM. We got Curtis Blades versus Almeida, Petr Yan versus Song Yadong, Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips. We got Mateusz Gamrot RDA, and we got Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. A lot of these matchups could have been placed on 300. It will make 300 more stacked. We're kind of in no man's land a little bit with 300. At the end of the video, though, I have some hopeful matchups for 300 that I'll tell you guys. But we know the bantamweight belt's not on the line. We got a stacked card the month before that looks like a super card. So what do we have for 300? Is it Alexa Grasso versus Weili Zhang fighting in a super fight for the women's flyweight belt with the women's strawweight champ Weili jumping up in weight? If you look at UFC 200, the headliner was Amanda Nunes versus Miesha Tate, so it wouldn't be out of the question for UFC 300 to also have a women's main event. And maybe it works out like a dream. In the co-main event, we got Juliana Pena fighting against the winner of Raquel Pennington and Mayra Bueno Silva for the women's bantamweight title. Juliana Pena fought Kat Zingano way back at UFC 200. Maybe it's written in the stars that she'll co-main event it. Double women's main events for UFC 300. That's the super card? I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, the Grasso versus Weili fight, I would like to see on the card. And I'm interested in that matchup for sure. But it's not a main event. It's not a 300 main event to me. Jon Jones is injured. Dream scenario would be Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall at UFC 300. But Jon Jones is going to fight Grandpa Stipe.
Maybe Tom deserves to fight Jon or deserves to fight Stipe, or maybe that's a better fight.
No. Because the UFC, specifically Dana White, seems dead set on giving the legacy fight to Jon Jones against Stipe Miocic in what is a way easier fight than the young interim champion, Tom Aspinall, which at this point, we have 2 heavyweight champs. Because that interim belt Tom Aspinall is holding looks pretty fucking legit right now in the way that he dispatched Pavlovich with relative ease. And I want to see John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. Everybody wants to see John Jones versus Aspinall, but no, they want to do the Stipe fight. And when are they going to do it? Over the summer at International Fight Week, because John Jones got a pec tear. So we're screwed on that front. Aspinall defending the interim belt. Alex Pereira, he kind of teased the idea of trying to be a 3-weight world champ, but let's be honest. The UFC is not going to throw Alex Pereira an interim title fight at heavyweight. And if they do, God bless, because it's going to make the card a lot of fun. But it seems like something they wouldn't be into. I'd tune in, I'd watch. I'm going to watch it regardless. It could be an all-women's main card. I'm going to be watching the event. I'm going to be covering it. I'll be disappointed as a fan, but I'll still be here. But for a lot of people, they want 300 to be the mega card of mega cards. And it doesn't seem like it's shaping up to be that. Let's talk a little more. We got another reason. A big reason there was limited championship fight options. Another reason UFC 300 will be a disaster is Conor McGregor is a drunken drug addict at this point and cannot seem to get himself out of a rut. Now, I know there's a lot of videos of him training online, but every single interview I see, Conor McGregor looks like he's snorting lines and taking shots. The dude is trashed in every single interview at every event.
How's the drink? Is the drink nice?
The drink is golden. The drink is cream. The drink is smooth, mate. The drink is silk.
And he's talking about boxing Manny Pacquiao in Saudi Arabia. He's saying he's trying to get a fight with the UFC and he's pushing him real hard. I find it hard to believe. Is he going to be ready for 300? Let's say he is ready for 300. Well, throw out any other championship fight on the card because Conor McGregor does not share pay-per-view points. An interim belt with Tom Aspinall, he'd get pay-per-view points. So that wouldn't happen. Wei Lee versus Grasso with Conor McGregor in a main event. Epic card, epic event. I think that'd be sick. But they wouldn't do it. Conor McGregor does not share pay-per-view points. You look at Conor McGregor, right? You look at his fights. He is the prize on the card every single time, okay? I want to just quickly bring up some of the Conor McGregor cards so you guys know. As a champion, when Conor McGregor had the belt with Eddie Alvarez fight, he's the main event of the evening, okay? Wonderboy versus Woodley, co-main event, was a belt on the line, but Conor McGregor was challenging for a title at this point. He's guaranteed the stock now. This is new money, Conor McGregor. This is multi-millions on millions, Conor. I would like to see a possibility of Conor McGregor fighting on a card with a championship fight on it. But what we've seen lately, he hasn't done that in a very long time. It's been McGregor as the only title fight on the card all the way back to that fight with Eddie Alvarez. And that was a title challenge for him. Now it's just McGregor, the mega star. He main events everything, and there's no titles on his undercard because he's collecting the chunk of it all. Okay. So, Conor McGregor, throw him out the window. We don't have Conor on the card now. But okay, we have a lot of really sick Muslim talent. There's some great Muslim fighters. Muslim fighters are most likely going to be unavailable due to Ramadan. They're going to be celebrating that, or I guess partaking in that. I don't know. We'll call it a celebration, but they're going to be fasting, right? Ramadan, I believe, ends on April 9th. The card takes place, April 13th? So Ramadan taking place, right? And we have the 13th of April. They're going to have, 4 days of not fasting? At least they're not going to be cutting weight fasted. But their entire training camps, they're not going to be drinking water or nothing. So we will say Leon Edwards will be ready to go. And maybe he's willing to fight Bilal. And damn, I could see the UFC doing it. Okay, you want to do it? You got to train through Ramadan. He's done it before. I know he's done it before. I believe that Bilal did it with Sean Brady, if I'm not wrong. Let me quickly bring it up as I pop the Zin out. Shout out to the Zins. Bilal versus Sean Brady, it took place. No, he didn't do it for that Sean Brady fight. I'm mistaken. Bilal did not do it. Does he want to fight through Ramadan, have his entire camp for a world title fight, the biggest bout of his entire career, and he's going to be in a subpar circumstance? I could see the UFC saying, let's go, let's do it. We'll give it to you. But it don't make a lot of sense. It screws them. And I think that Leon Edwards main eventing or even co-main eventing in England with Tom Aspinall also on the card would be a huge event for that country. And I see the UFC wanting to go down that route. I hope I'm wrong, though. I hope Leon Edwards and Belal does happen at UFC 300 because I think it'd be a great fight to have on the card. Now, it doesn't move the needle a lot with the fan base. Belal nor Leon Edwards have a significant fan base. People don't like them. For whatever reason, there's not needle movers. Great fighters, absolutely. Fight that I want to see, 100%. But the Muslim fighters are probably not taking it for Ramadan. And also, why do they not want it? Because the UFC is going to Saudi Arabia the month before. And Islam Makhachev is teasing fighting in Saudi Arabia that month before. Or he's saying he'll see you after Ramadan. Does he mean right after at 300? I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay, so what do we got? Maybe we got Justin Gaethje. Maybe we got a BMF fight. Let's do Max Holloway and Gaethje. Let's just sacrifice Max Holloway. I don't even want to see that. Arman Sarukian? Yeah, he looked BMF against Beneil with the one-punch knockout. He looked sick in that fight. But before that, he didn't look very BMF against Joaquim Silva. Are they going to give Gaethje him? Or is Gaethje going to want a super fight with that BMF belt? Because Arman Sarukian is not that super fight. Is it Gaethje versus Sarukian in the co-main event for the BMF title? With the women's championship in the main? I mean, maybe. But it doesn't seem very UFC 300-like. But who is available? There is a champion that's ready to go. It's Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira is going to be ready to go, but it's a logjam in the UFC light heavyweight division. Why? Walker versus Ankalaev. It's the first card back for the UFC. January 13th, I believe, around that date. Ankalaev obviously will be fasting for Ramadan during the time of UFC 300. So if he wins, he's probably out. Johnny Walker, dream scenario. He knocks out Ankalaev. Johnny Walker versus Alex Pereira would sell. That's a huge UFC 300 fight. That could even be a main event. If I'm the UFC right now, fingers crossed that Johnny Walker gets a massive upset because he's like a plus 300 underdog right now, and it's not looking likely that he pulls it off. Crazier things have happened, but I'm not picking him to win. I'm hoping that he wins. I'm praying for him to win because I think if he gets a quick knockout, he would be more than willing to turn around and fight at UFC 300. So we will pray to the MMA gods. Johnny Walker, please give us victory. And let's do Johnny Walker versus Alex Pereira for the light heavyweight title at UFC 300. It needs to happen. It'd be a dream scenario. It would make a great card. Pereira, Tom Aspinall makes a great card. It just doesn't seem likely they do it. He'd look for history, but winning an interim belt? Such a weird UFC 300 scenario. The timeline is just not looking great right now, and it's in Vegas. So I'd like to get some American fighters on to shine. I want Sean Strickland on it. If Strickland wins against DDP with minimal damage, maybe a quick turnaround, we do Sean Strickland. Does he fight Jared Cannonier in a rematch, though? Because does Adesanya take that rematch? He said he wants to fight in 2027, and then he said he was trolling. No, he's going to come back sooner. So is he going to fly then to America and want to rematch Sean Strickland in Vegas? Hometown fight for Strickland? I think it makes for a dope card, but these are like dream scenarios because logistically speaking, it doesn't seem all that likely. But there are some fights that we can hope for UFC 300 that at the very least will make it a fun card. And I'll promise you it's going to be good, but I don't think it's going to be the super card of super cards and it's going to be advertised to be. Holloway versus Emmett. I want to see Max Holloway fight Josh Emmett. They've never fought each other. Emmett's been a top contender for a long time. He's got serious knockout power. Could he be the guy that chins Max Holloway? That's a fight to make. Book that fight. Holloway versus Emmett is a great fight on the main card. And let's do a 5-round fight between those two as like a featured bout. Davison Figueiredo versus Corey Sandhagen. It's another one, though, that I want to see 5 rounds. How many 5-round fights can we get on the main card? I want to see that as a number 1 contender 5-round fight. Probably will end up being 3 rounds. Figueiredo's coming off a big win over Rob Font. Sandhagen dominated Rob Font. Sandhagen beat Marlon Chito Vera, but he got injured, and now Vera's fighting for the belt at 299. But Sandhagen is probably the rightful number 1 contender. But they're kind of screwing him sideways because they have Merab versus Cejudo in a number 1 contender fight. Rose Namajunas, Jessica Andrade 3. I think we can book that. But is Rose Namajunas in the mental place where she's willing to fight? I don't know about that. Derek Lewis, Jairzinho Rosenstruik. Can we just finally book that fight? I've been wanting to see it for a long time. Striker's Delight. Let's book the knockout artists against one another for 300. Jim Miller versus somebody. I don't care. Is it Tony Ferguson? If Gabe Benitez beats him, Jim Miller's fighting in January. If Gabe Benitez beats him, then maybe we do the Ferguson fight. But if Jim Miller wins, you can't feed Tony Ferguson to a surging Jim Miller who later in his career is looking like a straight killer. What do you got? Clay Guida versus T-Ferg on the card? So you see what I'm saying? I think UFC 300 will have a lot of good matchups and it'll be a fun card, nostalgic and all that. And there's going to be a lot of really good fights on it, but I want that super fight. I want that mega fight. The dream card is Tom Aspinall, John Jones. Unification bout. Has to happen. Dream scenario, Conor McGregor willing to co-main event and take on somebody like a Michael Chandler. Or Nate Diaz returns. Nate Diaz versus Conor? Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier? That would be sick. That will sell the hell out of UFC 300. But it just seems like the likelihood of a lot of these super fights that could potentially be made isn't there. Now, if Dricus du Plessis wins the belt in January, Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis on 300 as a main event, incredible. But we're looking at situations that involve a little bit of luck. How good is UFC 300 going to be? Because right now the main event's looking like Wei Lee versus Alexa Grasso. And I don't think that's the one. Conor McGregor, I hope he's willing to fight with another champ or with a real champ on the card. He's not a champ, but he gets pay-per-view points. I want Conor McGregor on the card. I want to see Michael Chandler get his shot, but it seems like McGregor is just waiting him out. And drinking alcohol, doing whatever recreational drugs is not conducive to success inside of the octagon at the highest level for the most part. I know John Jones did it. I know Chuck Liddell did it back in the day, but it's a different game now. It's a different game now. And Conor's been out a long time and he's dealing with, you know, a horrifying injury that he had in his last fight. And how's he going to even look coming back from it? Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor, is that the fight to make? You see what I'm saying? UFC 300, it may very well be a major disappointment for us fans. Now, guys, even though I'm shitting on the card, you know I don't like being negative too often, but I had to do a rant about UFC 300 because as I'm making this dream card, I'm like, dude, I don't know if it's going to be that dream. I think it's a pipe dream that UFC 300 is going to be like the biggest card ever. I think it's going to have a great amount of real good fights. Like every fight in the card is going to be good, but I don't know if it has that spectacular main event or spectacular co-main event. Realistically, Tom Aspinall versus Stipe Miocic for the interim belt even would be epic on the card. I'd be happy as hell with that. That will satisfy me. Alex Pereira fighting Tom Aspinall. Count me in. But it just seems like it might be a bit of a bust. As UFC 200 was a good card, sure. Tate versus Nunes in the main event. Let's not forget, it was Lesnar versus Hunt in the co-main. Cormier fought Anderson Silva. Jose Aldo fought Frankie Edgar. Cain Velasquez, Travis Brown. But the UFC is so much bigger than then. So I expect better. Way better. We'll find out if it comes to fruition. Guys, let me know in the comments. Do you think UFC 300 will be a disaster? Is it going to be a major disappointment? Or am I completely wrong and it's going to hit like no other card? The UFC will pull the rabbit out of the hat and pull something great out for UFC 300. I'm praying for it. Fingers are crossed that this video turns out to be way off, but I think I may very well be damn right. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you smash that like button. If you guys are new to the channel, subscribe to it. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Daily content. So keep it locked in right here at MMA Experts. Much love, my people, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.